Hello, and welcome to another episode of Miracle of Daily Living. I'm Reverend Terry Keenan, the senior pastor of the Santa Anita Church, and we have a wonderful, very special program for you tonight. Two old friends of mine. I'm not as old a friend of theirs as they are of each other, but I think you're going to have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful time. So sit down if you want to learn something that will make your entire life better. I want to introduce you to my two guests and friends this evening, Art Harriman and Dennis Miars. Welcome, gentlemen. It's nice to have you both here.
Thank you,
now,
Terry.
we have been talking about something that we're going to be doing with this show this evening for how many years now? 4, 5?
About 3 years, Terry.
Yeah, okay,
about 3 years.
It seems like so much more.
Yeah, we held you off for a little while because we just felt like we wanted to make it just a tad better.
Yeah.
And that's so we held off another year.
And live it a tad longer.
And live it
There
a
you
tad
go.
longer.
I want to ask you guys to start off with now, Art, what do you do?
I play music. I do motivational speaking. I build musical instruments. I think one of the most exciting thing I'm doing now is I got the label yesterday from the owner of a spa on Desert Hot Springs. He called me a singing concierge.
Oh!
I was greeting the people as they came in. It was a big tour for all the Palm Springs Valley.
Uh-huh.
And so I was singing to them as they came into the Miracle Springs Spa.
Oh.
So it was kind of fun. It was real fun.
And you spend about 6 months of a year out here.
I'm more like 8, and then 4 months in New England, where I was raised on Golden Pond, and I'm writing songs with the man that wrote the movie on Golden Pond.
So it must be a rough life, Art.
I'm a blessed man.
And Dennis, what do you do?
Well, I spent the last 42 years building a real estate and development company. And it's really kind of interesting because Art and I have been friends for about 35 years. And it's kind of fascinating for me because Art's coming from the artistic side of life. I'm coming from the business side of life. And so we've been able to kind of merge a lot of our thinking together and our things that we've learned, and we find that we've been able to put it together and really enhance both of our lives.
You have two completely different backgrounds here. You are, as you said before we went on the air, you just have a business mind. And your mind is more artistic. How did you guys, well, first, you've known each other 47 years, is that right?
About 35 years.
35, okay.
Years, yeah.
I keep exaggerating
Yeah, we
tonight.
keep getting older every day.
Yeah, you got to keep me down to it. So 35 years you've known each other and been good friends.
And you were right about Dennis being good in business, because I was doing motivational speaking and entertaining, and I was doing the business myself. But I didn't like doing the business part of it. And I thought, God help me with this. And Dennis is a genius with business, and he's fair, and you don't have to second guess him. And I thought, Dennis, let's go ahead and do this thing together. And so there you go.
All right, but how did you meet?
Back in the day.
Back in the days, yeah. You know, you talk about being led in the right directions, Terry.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing about Art, I was always impressed with the fact that and we went to recording studios, and I used to look at people and say, geez, I wished I was that creative to do those things. But, you know, and Art told me one thing, and it always sat with me 30 years ago. He says, you know, I couldn't be as creative in business as you are. And then I realized, yeah, that's just another part of being creative. But prior to that,
let's go all the way back.
All the way back.
A
A mutual friend. In fact, it was a young lady that we were both dating but didn't even know each other. Was supposed to have led us together. And I remember one day she came in the office and said, Dennis, would you like to meet the other gentleman that I go out with? And you know, the funny part, at that point, it wasn't a thought. I didn't think, nothing entered the brain except, yeah. And it came out that way.
I think most of the time young men would say, are you serious?
I think, yeah, you're right, Terry, and I look back at it now, and when Art came in, and I remember it as it happened yesterday, within probably just 5 or 10 minutes, I turned to Art, and I said, Art, I don't know you from Adam, but something tells me that I'm supposed to ask you this question. And I said, I think there's a better way to do it than what I'm doing it. And Art's comment was, do you want to go for a walk? So about 2 years later, after we got back from a walk,
that was a long
that
walk.
was a long walk and a lot of conversation. It was nice to look at it differently. And me being from the business side, I was a little more skeptical than artistic. So I said to Art, prove it. And that's the statement I made. Not everything written is correct. And so we put it to I put it to the test.
Now, I know we're beating around the bush,
Right.
and that's intentional, but had you thought in this way of thinking before Art, or had you kind of dabbled with it, or did he sort of pull the light on?
To me, there was always the question. I was brought up in different churches.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to attend different ones and explore things there. There's this divine intelligence, but you can't quite grasp it. You can't get a hold of it.
Yeah.
And that was always been one of the problems, And I kept thinking, well, if there's this divine intelligence, why is there so much struggling going on?
Mm-hmm. And why am I working 7 days a week?
Why am I working 7 days a week?
7 days a week. I said, come on. There's something that's maybe out of balance.
Maybe out of balance, and that's what it was. It was out of balance.
So you guys are using a way of thinking to help make life better and to work less and accomplish more, putting it down into a little package.
By thinking less.
Okay, we have to put that in there too.
Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
Thinking less, making room for the Holy Spirit, if you will, to move into our lives, be receptive, be
but
guided.
now let's take this down to an extreme now. For the last couple of years, at least, we have been in the midst of what everyone wants to talk about as a serious recession. Real estate has plummeted. You're a realtor.
Yeah, Terry, I've been through 5 of these, five different recessions.
Unscathed.
Unscathed.
How are you doing in this one?
Absolutely wonderful. But a lot of it comes to the fact that you have to realize at some point in time that life outside yourself, what I call my life situation, which is where I live, what I would do, and so forth, is really nothing more than a concept of me. That's all it is. It mirrors me. It mirrors who I am. Yes, there is a recession going on. Yes, people are losing their jobs. And there is a tremendous amount of negativity right now. Really way too much negativity. But if you step back and say, does the recession really affect me? Oh, yes, only to the degree of the attention that I place on it. Once you, and thank you, Art, once you get the concept that everything outside of myself, what we now call my life situation, is nothing more than a mirror effect of me. So even though there's a recession going on, how I perceive me will in turn create my life situation outside of myself. So the recession really doesn't have any effect. And really when you get down to it, if someone lost their job, I think one of the problems that people do is they talk about it, they nurture it, they talk to other people about it. It's like, let's say let's not water these plants anymore. And someone said, well, they'll die. Yeah, they'll die. I said, let's not give this negativity that much attention. Let's let it die of its own accord. And then let's recreate it. And Terry, Art and I both have done one-on-ones, we've done groups, we've done numerous people, and one of the nicest things is the feedback, because every one of them comes back and says, man, my life is different. The recession is still going on. My life is different.
Well, I know with talks that we have had over the last year,
right.
You'll be saying things like, I'd love to talk longer, but I have a meeting in about a half an hour, and it's about a $350,000 meeting.
Right.
And I'll be thinking, well, where's this thought of recession? And there isn't any. It's just, it is so beautiful, and it's so
right.
growing and expanding. And in talking before we came out here today, Art, you were talking about just what happens when we actually trust. Now, thinking about that, going into life being a reflection, Now, you're saying life is a reflection of what we're thinking. So if I'm thinking, I am not poor.
Well, let's change the verbiage and not put a lot of attention on the word poor.
Thank you.
One of my
Where the attention goes, the energy flows.
Right.
The old adage.
Yeah.
One of my very close friends was doing an affirmation last week and said, "Thank you, God, for this nice house, my wonderful family, and my cars that don't break down."
Oh, and
Next
what
week,
happened
all
that
three
day?
cars broke down. But you know what? The nice thing, he was so much aware of it that he just rechanged the verbiage, and everything stopped. So people have to become really, really aware of the words they use, because as these words they use, they're creating this light. They're creating the things around them every day. And
not even the words that they're always speaking, but the words they're thinking.
Words they're thinking.
The way they're treating themselves. Like the thing where I always get a stupid.
Right.
Well,
right. Yeah. Really.
That's
yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
this is wonderful. Now, Art, you kind of were the mentor for Dennis to learn even more about this. How have you seen that reflected, this being, the world being an image of you, a reflection of you? How has this reflected itself in what you do?
Well, what I'm learning, and I've been learning it for a lot of years, is I identified for years with my profession. I watched Dennis identify with his profession. And I said, if we don't just identify with the profession and begin to identify with the fact that I believe we're spiritual beings having a human experience.
Yeah.
I believe we're made in the image and likeness. So let's get in touch with that part of us that's made in the image and likeness of the divine. So now I'm learning to identify with an aspect of being that I can experience by taking a little silence each day. I feel the presence of peace. Mm-hmm. And I know I didn't make that peace happen. I just became receptive to it. I believe peace isn't something that we acquire. I believe we actually tune into it. And I believe prosperity, again, and I'm repeating one of the greats is Dennis Dyer, not Dennis.
Wayne Dyer.
Wayne Dyer.
Mm-hmm.
And he's great at turning us on to something other than identifying with our material world and our life situation. And so I've been practicing the presence of that, and in the process, I mean, the songs I've been writing, the relationship I have with my family, the friendship and the business partner I have in Dennis, I feel very blessed, practicing the presence of what we contain other than identifying with our material world that the achievements and the things that we do.
And you both speak about starting the day with silence, with meditation. And it reminds me that I believe it was St. Augustine who said, I had so much to do today, I knew I could never accomplish it if I didn't start the day with meditation.
Right. And I think a lot of that, Terry, is because they're trying to go do it themselves without any assistance. I did that for years.
And Jesus taught, of my little human self, I can do nothing. That's a pretty good adage there that we can learn from.
But the Father within doeth the
Father
work.
within, you bet.
Yeah.
And he said we could do the same things he was doing, helping the blind see straight, if you will.
Yeah.
Healing the sick.
Yeah.
So now how much time in the morning do you spend in meditation?
Mine varies, Terry, I find about 10 minutes up to about 20 minutes. And the funny part about that, you'll know when it's done. You'll know when it's right.
The timer goes off.
It just feels right. And then, I watch the day unfold. The business runs absolutely perfect. But most importantly is all the little exciting things that come in. The phone calls you get that you weren't expecting. People find you out of nowhere. That want to do business, want to joint venture things. And every person you're doing it with, you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to think, geez, is this guy going to get me into problems? So business-wise, it's just a tremendous advantage. But this class we have coming up on the 23rd at the Santa Anita Church, which I want to mention, is when Art and I got together, I said, Art, you and I have both practiced this. And, Terry, I'm going to get off the beaten track here for just a minute.
Sure.
But everybody's always has experienced this thing of this little intuitive thoughts. Oh, I knew that was going to happen. And then it goes away and they forget about it.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden they'll get it again months later. And my question has always been, why am I getting this? Why is this thing coming in? And what if I started to get this? What if I could get this on a regular basis? So basically, that God within, that divine intelligence that makes our sun come up every morning and makes these plants grow and everything, what if I could actually tune into that point where I could actually receive that information? So it would it would actually allow me to move further ahead with less problems. Mm-hmm. And every time I move ahead, I know I'm going down the right road.
Yeah.
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 And so Art and I got together, and I wanted to plug the class because I think this class is probably one of the most important things that's out there today. Because I told Art, I said, Art, if we're going to do it, I want to give somebody a step program. I want to give something, because once they start it, within 2 or 3 days, they're going to see things happen in their life. Their whole quality of life is going to change, and they're going to want to continue.
All right, now let me throw a curve to you.
Okay.
This is something that just occurs to me. If we look at the state of America and a lot of the other countries in the world today, the idea of religion is becoming very passe. You talk to an awful lot of young people and they say, yo, he's talking about God and all that stuff. And that's just, it doesn't happen. It doesn't exist. What can people like that do? What can they learn? How can they change their lives around?
One of the things, may I jump
Absolutely.
in? One of the things is, if you think about the word religion, to rejoin mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, what we are in the present moment, and to get all that together in balance, I believe is what Christ was teaching. And religion it can be a way of life when we let go of the Word and all the concepts and begin to sense the presence of the peace that's right where we are. He didn't say, my misery and suffering I leave with you. He said, my peace I leave with you. Okay, I believe him. I believe that we were left with peace. So if we take a little time and become still, we're going to feel a sense of peace, because it wasn't a joke. It was real. There's a sense of peace right here.
Yeah.
So when we talk about religion, I think if we can look at it just a little bit differently, it doesn't change the essence of divinity by looking at it without judging it, without condemning it, without trying to get it, without trying to get rid of it, without arguing with somebody that their concept of God is different than your concept, because the concept of God isn't God anyway. It's a concept. So if we let all this mentalizing and concepts go, we're apt to feel the presence of something that all these concepts are actually talking about and describing. We want to feel it. St. Francis said, go preach the gospel, and if necessary, use words. In other words, let's get in the present. Let's start the day off. I love what Marianne Williamson said about starting the day off. She said, if you want the day to produce miracles for you, start it off with God. Make that connection. Make that connection. Feel the presence. And some people go, well, I have trouble meditating because my mind goes and chatters and da-da-da-da. I tell them, be gentle with yourself. Watch the chatter. I had to do the same thing. Watch the chattering mind. It's a normal response to the way we've been raised to think. So your mind is responding normally to the way we were raised, innocently by people who had the same thing done to them. Think. All of a sudden, we're learning how to observe a thinking process. And as we're watching it, there's something else in us that's emerging, the parts that's watching. It's not trying to get rid of the thoughts. It's not judging them. It's not condemning them. It's not justifying them. It's simply observing. And I call that intuitive perception. And as we keep intuitively watching these thoughts, because they're images, they'll fall away. And what will become dominant is our awareness of the present moment. And the power is in the present moment. And it's divine power. And it's a gift that we all have within us and around us.
And in turn, the recession won't have any effect on their life.
It's wonderful because you just answered my next question.
Good.
So that was,
Go to the next one.
Yeah, no, that was a wonderful, wonderful answer,
Right.
and thank you both for that, because that takes us back to what we're saying. So many people now are saying, I'm out of work. I can't find work. I don't have any money. There's just no hope. And yet, go ahead.
I want to share a thought here on that. Help people to understand as soon as we can, and Ernest Holmes would appreciate this, to uncover the truth, that prosperity is not something that we acquire. It's been taught for years. Prosperity is not something we acquire, it's something that we tune into. He never left.
Yes, thank you.
He said, I am with you always. He never left. So the Holy Spirit is right where we are. We want to accept that or reject it. We have free will.
Yep.
And he said, I give you a blessing and a curse. In other words, if we don't accept it, we're actually misusing our gift.
Yeah.
And we're bringing on our own curse, if you will. But the blessing is, if we use it, prosperity is something we're going to experience continuously. And it's not always money. Quite often it's just that wonderful feeling of joy and feeling of compassion for people and feeling of having learned something and feeling of being in touch with something that you cannot help but serve other people by helping them to realize it. To realize it's something that they contain that doesn't have to be squelched by putting all of our attention on the material world. That doesn't mean we're not going to observe or acknowledge the discomforts. But we're not going to dwell on the discomforts. We're going to dwell on something that's trying to emerge from within us. And I call it the creative genius within all of us. And if we don't allow it to emerge, we're never really going to feel at peace, because it ain't going to let us be peaceful until we allow it to emerge. And when we do, what a change. We perceive things totally different now. We see them from this. There's no judging, no condemning, no justifying, just seeing and feeling the present moment.
One Christian writer a number of years ago said there is a God-shaped hole at the heart of every man that nothing else can fill. And that's really the kind of thing we're talking about here, is understanding that and not following a particular specific religious path to get there, but following what it is for you and what your relationship is with God.
And to learn how to see the blocks without judging the blocks and without being in conflict with the blocks, because the blocks are illusions anyway. It's a belief system that we've developed. And if we learn to look at the belief system without judging it, without being in conflict with it, all of those blocks are going to fall away. We have to learn how to look. The biggest plight most people have that I've been associated with, and personally in my own life some years back, was I didn't know how to look at the blockage. I didn't know how to look at the fact that I was stepping on the hose, if you will, for a metaphor, and it wasn't flowing. I didn't know how to look at that, because the minute I saw myself being anger, anxiety, negative emotion, anytime I saw that, and plus I had a network of escapes: wine, weed, women, whiskey, go on and on. But when we learn how to look at these things without judging them, then I call that, again, intuitive perception. We're perceiving from a non-judgmental place that we all have that ability to do. We just have to cultivate our awareness of it, practice the presence of it, train for it. I mentioned training, and somebody said, well, you don't train. Well, hey, you can train for it. You can learn how to unlearn stuff that's not working for us, that we might be holding on in our programmed mind, if you will. We can learn how to undo that. If it's not serving, why are we holding it? It reminds me of the two monks that were walking through the forest, and they came to the stream, and there was a woman crying. And one monk says, why are you crying? She says, because when I came across a stream on my walk this morning, the stream was low, and now it's swelled up. He said, don't worry. He said, and he picked her up, and he carried her across to the other side of the stream, and he put her down. And the two monks went on for about a half an hour. And the other monk said, how do you feel? You made a vow that you would never touch a woman, and you picked that woman up and you carried her across the stream. And the other monk said, I put her down a half an hour ago. You're still carrying her.
Yeah.
And innocently, we hold on to stuff we don't need.
Once again, you answered the question before I asked it.
That's preconceived.
That's intuitive perception.
That's the one mind.
Does that tell you something is happening here that's kind of cool?
Yeah. But
Thank God.
The neat thing, Terry, and if people would just go try it. Just go try it.
Well, now
because that's what they're going to get excited about. Because the minute, everything that Art's talking about, starts a new cause or a new law in motion.
Yeah.
And the law of physics says, hey, there's got to be an effect. There has to be an effect. And those effects come back into their life in such a way that it says, man, this is really nice.
Oh, yeah.
And I've had people come back to me and say that. They say, boy, in fact, a lady told me today that I've been spending some time with talking to. And she, out of the blue, she came to me and she says, Dennis, since you've been talking to me and I've been listening and trying to, man, my life is really good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But words are really important, and that's where, and I know you said that. So when you said, people have to watch their words.
Yeah.
I had a lady in Texas that I've been working with, and she's been married for 12 years, and her husband never gave her a diamond ring, and she called me last week, and she says, well, Dennis, I'm still waiting for my diamond ring. And I said, isn't that wonderful? The law is working. You said it and you're getting it. You're still waiting. And isn't that wonderful? You keep thinking about it and you're still waiting. So the laws work. So we don't have to worry about the law of gravity not working today and everything floating. So that law works. So now, words are extremely.
I'm going to have to jump in because we're almost out of time.
Okay.
And I want to know, as you said, we can learn to do this.
You bet.
And it works.
It works.
And I want to use this last little bit of time to let people know that March 23rd, from 7 to 9, you will be presenting a class at the Santa Anita Church on intuitive perception and learning to use it.
Yeah.
And we're down to 1 minute, so I really want to get that in there. If you're interested in coming to this class, as you see, we could probably go on till midnight talking about this. This happens very often when Dennis and I get together, and Art I don't see as often, but the same thing happens, and when you get the two together, it's crazy. It's wonderful stuff. If you would like to learn to put this law of intuitive perception to work in your life, along with a whole bunch of other things that makes the thinking and work easier and the rewards greater, Santa Anita Church, March 23rd from 7 to 9 p.m. If you want more information, call the Santa Anita Church at 626-446-8206. This is going to be a tight, concentrated 2-hour class that is just going to amaze you. And I don't think there's much else I can say about that except what we've heard from you today. If I was listening, I'd be saying, what was that number again? 626-446-8206. Call it. Plan on coming to the class. Art, Dennis, thank you so much for being on Miracle of Daily Living. So there we are. And thank you so much for being with us this evening. We've really enjoyed having you, and I hope you've enjoyed tuning in. If you want more information, you can contact the Santa Anita Church, 226 West Colorado Boulevard in Arcadia. Phone number is area code 626-446-8206. We'd love to see you on Sunday morning, and we especially would love to see you on March 23rd for a night that will change your life.